All right, so parents, I'm about to give you the secret to making sure that your athlete is as confident as possible playing basketball. You ready for it? Wait. Before I get to that, two questions. Number one, how long do you think it takes your player to get over mistakes they make in a game or maybe calls they feel like don't go their way? The second question is, how long do you think it takes you to get over those things? Now that we have something to think about, let's talk about kind of the strategy I have in place, the tool that I think you and your kid can use to help them gain more confidence. And I'm going to do that in three, two, one. Coach White here at SFBA Sports Performance. I got to go through this quickly because I have practice coming up in a little bit. So I don't want to take too much time, but I hopefully want to give you enough information that makes it make sense. Number one, we're talking about something called next play mentality, right? That mental part of the game that we tend to ignore. Work on shooting, dribbling, ball handling, strength training, getting stronger, quicker, faster, all these things. But we forget that there's one thing that controls all of that. This thing. So let's see how that can play into your players being more confident on the court and making better decisions and moving on to the right play. First of all, next play mentality. What is it? It's the ability to move on immediately, mentally and emotionally. It's last play happened, that's over, what's the next thing to get to? If your players start to develop that type of mindset when they're playing basketball, I guarantee you're going to have a more confident player. The thing that most parents have been telling me they want their kids to develop, there's no drill for this. A lot of times it's establishing that as part of your culture as a team, how we reinforce that as coaches, how we allow our players to demonstrate that when they're out there in the culture we build in our teams, but also as parents, how you model that when you're in the stands and even those awkward conversations you might have in a car with your kids. Does any of that help? Or is it hindering your kid's ability to move on to the next play? So number one, this all applies to mistakes that people make, bad calls from referees, missed shots, turnovers. Bad mindsets replay mistakes over and over again. Next play mindsets lock into what's next. How do I get to the next thing? Not good or bad, just what's next. Why this matters for players. Number one, if one mistake turns into hesitation, fear of failure, playing it safe and not really playing to your potential, it leads to more mistakes. One mistake doesn't hurt a player, but stacking mistakes does. If your kid turns the ball over and they sit there and they just complain or pout and the other team scores a fast break layup, that's two mistakes. Turn the ball over, cool, it's done. Now get back, stop the layup, let's get back in defense, let's stop them from scoring, let's get the ball back, let's push. Great, no harm, no foul. But when you sit there and dwell on it, it doesn't help. And when I hear things from the stands like, what are you doing? Versus, hey, get back on defense, get to the rim, give them clear instructions. I have no problem with parents saying things from the stands and giving comments and being supportive and yelling and being emotional. But are the things you're saying helping? Like, are the things that you're saying or the way that you say things or your expressions, your body language, your facial expression, again, it's an emotional sport. As a coach, you know, my visual representation isn't always what I think a player wants to see. But I always try to remember, number one, how do I voice something in a way that you can understand it? How do I help you navigate that situation so you can learn from it and see what the answer should be? They're pressing this way. Okay, cool. We should be like this. Here's where the gaps are. Here's where the holes are in the defense. Here's where we pass to. Use that dribble to create a passing lane. Here's where we want to receive the ball. Run the baseline. All these things. I'm giving instructions so that I can keep myself within the flow of the game and also keep their minds within the game as well versus dwelling on what just happened. Let's move on to what needs to happen next. And parents, I really feel like if you're going to say something, let it be something, number one, supportive. And number two, if you're going to say anything at all, make sure it's instructions that make sense and mirror the concepts that your teams utilize. Like, for example, a lot of kids don't know after a made basket, you can run the baseline. They'll take the basketball out and they'll just stand there and they'll throw passes at angles that typically will get stolen because they're throwing in the line of the defense. And that's a steal, that's a layup. In the first 12 minutes or the first minute, it's 12-0. And you're wondering why. Well, if you're shouting things like run the baseline, now you remind your kid that they can run the baseline to make a more direct pass to a teammate to hopefully get the inbound pass in to break the press. But if you're just like, stop turning the ball over, well, tell me how. Right? And if you can't do that, maybe limit your critiques and criticism to something that's more meaningful, or just don't say anything at all. Sometimes saying too much isn't the best thing. And I talk a lot. So again, if anybody knows that, it's me. um, when we look at how parents respond to things in the stands, replaying things from the game in the car, pointing out mistakes immediately, showing frustration in the stands, carrying emotional energy. Like I've seen players at a timeout walk over to their parent and like their parents are just like, hey, you got to do this. I'm like, go to the bench. Like stay over here, mom and dad. Your kid goes over there. But I think sometimes when you just have to criticize every single thing they do, you have to kind of pick your battles and know that everything's not going to go right. Maybe it was supposed to go that way, or maybe it wasn't. Who knows? But everything doesn't need to be pointed out at every single second. Sometimes I won't say something to a player because they don't need to hear it at that moment. I can pick my battle because if I say this, I know that this kid's going to start dwelling on it. So let me find another avenue for them to be successful, or I make a substitution. But when we just keep replaying everything over and over again and just harping on the mistakes, you're not leading them to find the answers. I think as coaches, when we just like give those post-game speeches and we just nail out everything that was wrong, well, cool, you did that, but did you nail in everything that was right? And did you give me solutions to all the things we did wrong? Did you even teach me that, or are you just telling me I don't want it hard enough, or I'm not working hard enough, or I gotta fight harder? That's not a strategy. Like, if your kid understands the game of basketball, they're more inclined to make better decisions. But when we rely on our emotions as the tool to speak to kids without providing any feedback for how to make it better, I think we're just wasting their time and we're killing their confidence. If parents can move on, if parents can't move on, I don't think kids can either. Like, as adults, I think we tend to forget the power that we have in our example with how we react to situations and how we respond to situations really is the template for how kids learn how to do the same thing. I've seen parents of really good teams, lose close games, and then automatically, for the next hour, they're just ripping referees apart and blaming the world. What do you think your kid's going to do when things are chaotic? I've seen some really skilled kids, like high-level skilled kids, athletic, skill-wise, can dribble, shoot, all these things, like fall apart in some of the most competitive and aggressive situations. Once they face some adversity, they realize this isn't fun anymore. This isn't easy. It's not supposed to be. Like, this whole AAU thing, like, we've stacked these kids up into these like special elite teams so much, they just go around like destroying everybody else. The minute they face a really good team, you see these emotional outbursts. You see kids that can't control their emotions. You see kids that either just lash out or they just like collapse, mentally. And I think a part of that is we, as parents, I think a lot of parents do the same thing too. Like, if you're willing to go out there and fight a referee, if you're out there making all these comments, if you're over there talking to the other players on the team and you're a parent in the stands, like, that just shows your emotional lack of awareness and an irresponsibility to know that you're an example for your kid. So when they do the same thing or can't respond appropriately, I think we have to look at the lessons that they take from coaches and parents. And if, as a basketball community, we can be more responsible about how we respond in chaotic situations and not just hide behind like the shield of I'm just competitive or I'm just emotional, like, well, then like figure out how not to be. Like, figure out how to fix that. Like, issue a challenge to yourself. If you can't compose yourself in the most chaotic situation, especially with kids, I think you have to think about what it is that you're teaching your kids, not just from an X's and O's perspective, but also from, just a behavioral perspective. UConn was just in the national championship, and Dan Hurley is the coach of the UConn men's team. And I think he's known for being very emotional, to put it lightly. But I love what he does. I'm a huge fan of what he teaches his players. They know where his heart lies. They know where his energy goes into. They know that he cares, which is why his teams have been so successful over the years. The outside world sees somebody that can be emotional at times, but the people within his circle in the organization and his players, they know he cares. I think being a coach like that at the college level is fine. I have no problem with it. I think if you're a coach like that to third graders, I think that could be an issue. So it's also about understanding where you're at, knowing the audience that you're playing, that you're working with. When you're working with kids, I think you can hold them to some level of accountability. You can be aggressive at times. But I also think that if we're really focused on teaching and instructing kids on how to play the game of basketball, then we need to make sure we maintain that as much as possible as coaches and also as parents. Reliving mistakes doesn't help them process. It creates anxiety. It starts to create more doubt within how they play. And it leads to them just not wanting to disappoint their parents and coaches versus trying to go out there and just play the game of basketball. And now all of a sudden, parents and coaches, you've made yourself the primary goal of not disappointing, being not disappointed by the player versus having them focus on just how to play the game. Like, if the whole kid is worried about not hearing you say air ball every time they shoot in the stands, now their decisions are based off of the things that you say or the things that you do, the comments that you make, versus the right and wrong play to make in a game. If I can play freely it's going to build my confidence. It's going to increase my decision making, and it's going to decrease burnout because there's more joy to play the game. If I can't play freely, it will lower my confidence. It will slow my decision making, and it will increase my opportunity to burn out from wanting to play this game and mentally just say, I give up, I quit. And I think as coaches, what we want is we want players to make a mistake, but get to the next play, get back on defense. I want you to miss a shot and still feel okay to take the next one. I want you to, get scored on and then stay engaged enough to know that it's time to break the press and to get to our spots and sprint to your areas on the floor. I think a couple of solutions that we can have is, number one, the car ride home. Rule number one, don't break down the game immediately. Let your kid process. There was a college coach years ago I saw on, I think, Instagram, and he talked about how his kid played basketball. And he's like, yeah, after my kid has a rough game, I don't go over the game. I don't ask him how it went. I just say, hey, you want to go get ice cream? And they go get ice cream. And he said, I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, my kid will forget this game. It won't matter to him. But hopefully what he remembers are the times after he had games, we went to go get ice cream. And he looks at that as one of the best moments he had with his dad, right? Not his dad ripping him apart and criticizing him and getting on him for every single detail, knowing that he is a college coach, by the way, which most parents aren't. But this guy who coaches basketball at a high level said, no, it's not time to rip my kid apart. I'm just here. Hey, it's over. You've already lost. You've been beaten up. You've already gone through the ringer. You don't need me to add to it. Number two, he needed his kid to have a time to decompress. Now that you're here with your family, this is safe. Hey, how's it going? I know you work hard. I know you're trying out there. It was a rough day. That's cool. Let's go get some ice cream. Want to go to the park? Want to go hang out? Let it be an opportunity for your kid to release from the stressful period that they just had. But I think oftentimes parents can't release it themselves. So verbally, it's like a therapy session for you because of what you experience as a parent in the stands. The problem is you're pouring that onto your kid who was actually in that environment. And I think that's the complete wrong way to go about it. I know a lot of people may disagree with it and they think, I just got to say this to my kid. But I think in reality, most of the time you don't and you shouldn't. You can replace criticism with things like, hey, I love watching you play. That was awesome. Hey, you made some great effort out there. Hey, that was a tough team, but I love the way you kept competing. Hey, did you have fun out there? Okay, cool. Or hey, did you feel good about your play? Yeah, cool. No? Yeah, it's okay. I thought you did good. And reinforcing it, you don't have to look at everything as bad. And maybe they didn't play the best, but they don't need you to be the extra critic at times. I know you're the one financing this and you're funding it and you're driving them all over the place and you have expectations, but they get that from other people too. They get that from their coaches. They get that from their teammates. They experience that from the opposing team who's competing against them. Life is already giving them a bunch of stuff that's throwing, all these evaluators in their way. And I think parents sometimes you wonder who's the support system, who has your back, where can they go to just relieve the stress for a second. And if it's not the right home, if it's not being at home, if it's not your parents, then who else is it? So I think if we can temper those conversations a little more and treat it more as a release time for kids versus let's go over everything again. You let your kids kind of just decompress for a second and it puts them in a better mindset to hopefully re-engage that information later on in practice the next time and hopefully play with a little more freedom mentally. In the stands, body language, avoid coaching from the sidelines. I can't say this enough. Not everything people say from the stands is constructive. A lot of times I'll hear parents say things in the stands and I'm like, that is completely opposite of what I just told your kid. If you disagree with my coaching philosophy and what I'm doing, cool, you'll find another team after the season's over. But while they're here, let's do a better job of reinforcing the concepts that we're teaching kids in practice and trying to pull off in games. If in my team, I send my parents emails of the practices that we an email with notes of the practices that we have, going over terminology, concepts, what we're doing offensively and defensively. So if they're going to say anything, hopefully they're reinforcing these things from the stands or maybe on the ride home if it has to be, but you're not conflicting with the messages. The messages should be consistent. So I try to do as good a job as I can of giving our kids a chance to review the information by sending the emails to parents so they can give it to their kids, but also so parents can look at that as well. And if you're going to feel like you need to say anything, say these things. Use the terminology that we use, voice the concepts that we're using. so that if you say something, it's just like having another coach on the opposite sideline. And if you're going to say it, at least reinforce the concepts that we're building so your kid doesn't hear mixed messages. Clap for effort, not results. I tell kids, I don't care if you make or miss a shot. If you took a good shot and it was a good decision, I will applaud that. But if every time your kid shoots it, you're airball, like how is that going to help? If anything, that's going to prevent them from taking that shot when it's wide open that we probably needed to either win or tie the game up at the end. And your reaction becomes their internal voice. Like kids, there's so much talk about mental health today, and how much like I hear like third graders are in therapy already. I'm just like, wow. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm not criticizing that. I just think it's it seems it seems a lot to know that kids so young are already seeking therapy because of what the world is putting on them, and a sport that's meant to be fun and engaging for kids and enjoyable and all this other stuff has turned into something that's become so stressful. Kids need therapy for it, and I think that's an unfortunate part. It's great that the resource exists, but you have to ask yourself mentally, what are you doing to put them in a framework to where they can think clear and just enjoy what they're doing to gain more access to learn, right? Or are they just shut down that they can't hear anything else because all they hear is your voice yelling airball all the time or your criticism? Like, you can critique, but you have to give answers. And if you don't know the answers, you shouldn't say anything. During practice and games, like teach simple reset habits, deep breaths, clap your hands, cheer on your teammates when they make a good play. If they miss it, hey, next play, I got you. I had this thing with my sixth grade team where everyone has to clap the entire time. So for 90 minutes, we're clapping. If you're not directly in the drill or the play, you're clapping it up. If your teammates shoot the basketball and they make it, hey, good shot, say their name. If they miss it, hey, get the next one, say their name. But everybody has to constantly verbally say something, and they're constantly clapping at all times. If they're not, I make them do push-ups. And so they realize quickly, like, you better keep saying something. But it really helps to create an environment that feels like it's energetic. And when players feel like people are clapping for them and they hear that, it immediately creates this sense of like, I'm being supported. When you hear people clapping, typically because they're celebrating somebody, they're appreciating somebody. And if you can hear that in practice the whole time and you feel like your teammates are clapping for you, whether they are or not, but you hear it and you see it, hopefully it creates more of a sense of like calm and like, oh, we're in this together, and appreciation. So now you feel like people are rooting you on, and then vice versa, they feel like you're doing the same. And so I think that really helps to develop more of a team mentality. It's where players can learn how to play for each other and not play like against each other at times. And if we do that, I think it really helps players develop that next play mentality, because they're no longer worried about like the criticism of their teammates. They can be held accountable. Their teammates can hold them accountable, tell them when they need to do something right, but they know where it's coming from. They know it's coming from a place that they want them to be supported, and we all here reach for the same goal. Benefits of next play mentality: it builds more confidence, it leads to faster development, better decision making, and more enjoyment of the game. For families, it leads to less stress on your end, better communication, and stronger relationships at the end of the day. When kids are afraid of mistakes, they actually stop reaching their potential. If you're always afraid of making a mistake, you're never going to fully let go to be the best you can be. But if your kid's not afraid of making a mistake and they realize it's not a mistake, it's just whatever, then you'll see somebody that's more aggressive to go out there and be something special, to be their full potential, to fully embrace the game of basketball in a way where they can develop and learn and take the mistakes or the problems as lessons and build from it versus hide from it. In closing, it's not about being perfect. I tell players, I don't search for perfection, I search for progress. I just want to see that we're progressing every day, and that will mean there's a ton of imperfection. But we're not doing this to be perfect, we're doing this to get better, and we will never reach perfection. But if we can just progress every day, we're going to see growth, and that's all I care about. And responding better, how we respond as coaches, how we respond as players, and how we respond as parents. Again, like, you're not playing the game, you're not coaching the game, but you play such a huge part in the game. And I think having a sense of responsibility about the things that you say, the reactions that you have, not bailing out and just saying like, well, I'm just emotional or I just care. It's like, if you care that much, then look at the things you're doing. And are they hurting or helping your player? Or are you just venting? Your kid doesn't need you to vent. They need you to support or just be quiet. Like I said before, if they have a bad game, go get some ice cream. Let that be their release time. Let them enjoy that. And then that might also lead to better relationships with you and your kid, because now they know that when things go tough in games, you're not going to be the next person that rips them apart. You allow them a chance to let their brain release for a second so they can calm down. And then maybe later on think clearly about what they did right and wrong from a healthier mindset. So, a couple things. You know, think about your last game. How long did it take you to get over mistakes? If that's an issue, then hopefully these steps kind of help your kid get there. Um, Share some examples with your players of things that maybe you've gone through in your life to where you felt like, if I had gone to the next thing, it would have been better. So they can see in real life how those things play out. And next game, try to think about how you say things and how you react to situations your kids do, or situations like referees in games, and your response to it, during the game, after the game, and on the ride home. And then really consciously look at, how you're doing things to benefit your kids' ability to have a next play mentality, or are they still lingering on what happened and can't release that because of fear or doubt or just aggression. So hopefully that made sense. I try to keep this short, and if it made sense to you, cool. If not, I'll try to do better next time. But anyways, Coach White here, SFBA Sports Performance, and I am out. Peace.